Delhi Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal seems to be running his government from behind bars. But can he? Joining me to discuss this are Ajit K Jha, political analyst and senior journalist, my colleague Ashok Bagariya. Welcome to the News9 Plus Show. Who would have thought, Ashok, that we'd come to this situation where the Chief Minister would be behind bars and issuing orders? Though we had discussed this possibility, it's actually happening.
Yeah, it's a very strange situation that we are witnessing today, that there is a elected Chief Minister of a union territory, or I shall call it a national capital region of Delhi, who is behind bars for his alleged acts of corruption. Now, this poses a very difficult question for the Indian polity. Now, here we have a situation where a elected Chief Minister is an accused in a case. He has been apprehended by the Enforcement Directorate. He is now under police custody and technically behind bars. But the situation here is, can Arvind Kejriwal continue to be as the Chief Minister of Delhi and run the government from behind the bars? So there are two aspects to this situation. One is the practical aspect and the other is the legal aspect. So I'll talk about the legal aspect first, where legally there is no bar for a person who has been elected and is the Chief Minister of a state or a union territory and is behind bars. So this does not stick any disqualification on him that he is barred from holding the position of the Chief Minister. The second bit is, can he run the office of the Chief Minister from the jail? Now, in the past, Supreme Court has frowned on such a practice of a convicted politician being elected or appointed as a Chief Minister, as it happened in 2001 in the Jayalalitha's case, where the matter went to the court, where what had happened was Jayalalitha was in 2000 convicted by a court under the Prevention of Corruption Act and sentenced to a jail term of 3 years. She wanted to contest the 2001 state assembly elections. She was not allowed to file her nomination papers, or rather her nomination papers were rejected. But however, AIADMK managed to secure a majority and the elected MLAs appointed or chose Jayalalitha as the Chief Minister. When she was appointed as the Chief Minister, there was a petition which was filed and the Supreme Court came down on such a practice, saying that this is against the constitutional morality. It's not a question of the will of the people. What is supreme is the constitutional will. It's above the will of the people. Now, today we are faced with an identical situation where Arvind Kejriwal is an elected Chief Minister representing the will of the people of Delhi.
Yes.
But the question still is that can he continue to be a Chief Minister from behind the bars?
Absolutely. That's a big question there. Ajit, what do you think, what are the options before the government in this case? And by the government, I mean the union government. What does the Lieutenant Governor do, for instance? Do you think he is going to seek presidential intervention in this very, very peculiar case as Ashok just brought out?
Well, Sandeep, legally, as Ashok himself pointed out, Arvind Kejriwal can run the government from the jail. So the problem is the practical aspect of it, right? You cannot have cabinet meetings there, or, you know, the files and things of that sort. If the NDA government was sympathetic to begin with Arvind Kejriwal, they would have perhaps done a house arrest in the past. They would have done a house arrest as an alternative. But however, they actually ended up putting him in jail. They meaning in this case, the ED custody, right? Now, let me discuss one aspect of it, which Ashok did not cover. Ashok discussed the legal and the practical aspect. Let me look at the political fallout of this entire thing. You see, until Arvind Kejriwal was arrested, look at the agenda of this election, right? It started with, in a big bang, Pran Pratishtha, right? Prime Minister Narendra Modi was setting the agenda for this election. Before that, in fact, was G20 last year, which had made Modi ji into a Vishwa Guru. And and the way it was handled all across the country, Modi ji was emerging as a great sort of leader. After that, the entire CAA, again, again the BJP defined it. Much before that was Article 370. But now look at the day Arvind Kejriwal has got arrested, look at the agenda in the country. Look at all the news media. Look at all the newspapers. What is grabbing the headline? It's not anymore the Prime Minister. It's not Prime Minister's lecture in Bhutan anymore. It's actually Arvind Kejriwal.
Right.
So I feel that there has been a shift of the national agenda. Arvind Kejriwal, who's actually, it's almost like if you want to kill a rat, instead of putting a rat trap, you bring the entire Patton tank and the entire army to sort of shoot down a rat. I think that has been the case here. If the ED had merely called Arvind Kejriwal for the 9th time, screamed at him, shouted at him, but let him go after a 9-hour or 10-hour grill, everything would have been normal. But the moment they arrested him right after the election, Arvind Kejriwal, who's actually inside the ED on allegations of corruption, is suddenly looking like a national hero who unfairly the government is targeting.
Absolutely.
Because
thanks, Ajit. I'm just going to bring Ashok in on this. Arvind Kejriwal has changed the narrative. Ashok, he's made the election all about himself. The narrative is now once again Arvind Kejriwal versus the government. How is that going to play out legally? How long can he, continue doing this?
Well, this whole thing about Arvind Kejriwal going behind the bars is basically going to be played out in his favor. In the sense, now he's going to play the victim.
He's the center of the your whole narrative now.
Yeah, he's going to play the victim.
Yes.
Now that, look, here is the central government, which is using one of its investigating agencies. And basically, just because we are not in alignment with the ideology of the government in power, we are being targeted.
Right.
That is one bit of it. Second thing, Arvind Kejriwal would want to draw this battle out longer.
Right.
In the sense that at the moment, there is a petition which is pending in the Delhi High Court, which says Arvind Kejriwal should be removed as the Chief Minister because he's gone behind bars.
Right.
And practically it will not be feasible for him to run the government from behind the bars. The second bit, which I just want to add to what Ajit said earlier, was the fact that what are the options before the Lieutenant Governor? The Lieutenant Governor could wait for another 10-15 days and file a report to the Home Ministry saying that, look, we are faced in Delhi with a peculiar situation where the Chief Minister is behind bars. The affairs of the state or the union territory cannot be run in accordance with the law or the constitution.
Right.
Hence, I recommend that there should be an imposition of the President's rule. But at the same time, this whole narrative, in fact, this is not something which has just happened with the arrest of Arvind Kejriwal. It's happened for a long time, that a narrative is being peddled politically, saying that how the central government is targeting opposition leaders and charging them in various PMLA cases and putting them behind bars. Here, the tallest man, who was who was a crusader against corruption, is today behind bars himself.
Right, absolutely. But Ajit, you think that possibility is very real, the fact that the LG could actually demand President's rule be imposed in Delhi and dismiss the government?
Well, suppose for a moment that the LG does that and the central government imposes President's rule. I feel that the entire AAP cadre in Punjab and Delhi, Haryana, Rajasthan, Gujarat will go on the streets.
Right.
So election campaign will take on a new direction, you see.
Right.
What is happening here, Arvind Kejriwal was not even an important member in the so-called India bloc, right?
Right.
The big players of India bloc were actually Mamata Banerjee, Nitish Kumar, Rahul Gandhi. Suddenly it's Arvind Kejriwal versus Modi instead of Rahul Gandhi versus Modi. My point is, the way they have handled the case, they have overstepped. Too much of force has been used. And this man is a culprit, but he has suddenly become a victim in the eyes of the people. Look at the way right now in Delhi, there are all protests all around. On 31st, there's going to be a massive protest. So I'm saying the entire thing should have been handled more carefully because
Right.
elections had already been announced.
Right, absolutely.
So,
So you think, Ashok, that was a mistake that the center made, as in, arresting him so close to the elections when it actually become a huge, electoral issue, as Arvind Kejriwal seems to have changed it.
Probably on the face of it, it looks like that the ED has taken a bite,
Yeah.
which is too big for it, and now it cannot chew.
Right,
So the
right.
issue here is that this possibly the arrest of Arvind Kejriwal
Right.
could backfire.
Right.
Now, in the last few days since Arvind has been arrested,
Yes.
we haven't seen much of a movement on the streets of Delhi except for today.
Right.
It looks that the cadres of Aam Aadmi Party
Yeah.
are waiting for dates closer to the elections
Right.
to hit on the streets.
Okay.
Now, when they start hitting the streets
Right.
and when the election process is underway,
Yes.
the narrative on the ground
Right.
will start changing. And this is where possibly,
Yes.
I say possibly, the BJP or the Enforcement Directorate could have got its calculations wrong.
Right, absolutely. No two ways about it. There is a case, and the ED has done what's right, but the timing of this whole thing suggests that it might have bitten off more than it can chew. You think it will be a major, election strategy for the AAP, Ajit, as Ashok was suggesting, closer to the elections? Fight, get out in the streets, bring your cadres, and tell the electors that, tell the voters that here is the man who's being wronged.
absolutely. In fact, look at the way the moment Kejriwal was rejected by the High Court, his bail, they were planning to go to the Supreme Court, right?
Yes.
But they withdrew because they realized that Arvind Kejriwal inside jail
Yes.
is sitting isolated, probably doing his vipassana that he used to do when he would go all the way to the south and do vipassana. So
Yes.
he's sitting and doing vipassana.
Right.
But remember, AAP is like BJP, a cadre-based party, right?
Yes.
So all the cadre will be on the street, and
Right.
suddenly AAP ends up getting much more mileage in the
Yes.
so-called Indian election than it would have otherwise got in a Lok Sabha poll.
Right.
And when you target your opponent, whether
Yes.
the opponent is plus or minus, remember Lalu Prasad Yadav, the more he was targeted, the more he would win the
Yes.
Bihar poll, right? So the
Right.
moment you target someone, there is sympathy wave for that person, whether
Yes.
that person, in this case, as we know, there are allegations of corruption of more than 100 crores, right?
Right.
But somehow that whole issue has fizzled out, given the fact that there is a bond issue going on in the country, right?
Yes.
Where all the political parties have been named. So people are thinking, is hammam mein to sab nange hain, right?
Right.
Everyone is involved in this, but Kejriwal is being targeted, others are not.
Right.
So somehow the sympathy wave has shifted. It has begun to shift. And
Right.
the more he's inside jail, the more he'll become popular.
Yeah.
And for him, it's good. He's just sitting there and doing vipassana.
He's just sitting there doing vipassana, and as Ajit said, the name's bond, electoral bond, and that seems to have taken the wind out of the Congress's sails. And let's not forget, Ashok, the Congress is the party that actually exposed this whole Delhi liquor scam. Delhi's booze wars there. So we're talking of bars, Ajit, and then you have the Chief Minister behind bars. But like you said, he's not going to be wanting to come out in a hurry because he's made an electoral issue for himself. There's no question, you think, in your mind that he would actually prefer to hand over the Chief Ministership to another party member, Atishi or Saurabh Bharadwaj, and he's going to continue being the Chief Minister, issuing orders from behind bars?
See, the little bit I know Arvind Kejriwal, he's actually a terribly insecure person, right?
Right.
Remember that famous episode where he chucked out all the bright guys
Yes.
who were in the party, like Yogendra Yadav,
Right,
Professor Anand Kumar, the other Ajit Kumar Jha, who was in the AAP earlier
Yes.
and now in one of the farmers' leader. So, in fact, even Bhushan, right?
Yes, the Bhushans, Prashant and
Bhushan,
Shanti Bhushan.
Prashant
Yes.
Bhushan, right. So he's a terribly insecure person.
Yes.
He will not hand over power to Atishi, who probably is much more competent and
Yes.
much more honest than Arvind Kejriwal. But right now, what I'm pointing out, people are not weighing that on the.
Right.
When I went out and talked to people,
Yes.
everyone is asking me, "Bhai, jail क्यों दे दिया? सारे
Right.
नेता तो फंसे हुए हैं केस में."
Right,
So
right.
the public mood is slowly going to change, and the
Yes.
longer they keep him inside jail, the
Right.
more he'll become a sympathy figure.
Absolutely. Ashok mentioned that the ED might have bitten off more than it can have chewed, and the timing of the arrest is what seems to have given the Aam Aadmi Party a new fillip of life. Arvind Kejriwal is now the center of attention, whether he is the chief minister or he's going to stay behind bars and continue being chief minister, we don't know. But for the moment, it appears that the AAP has got itself an electoral issue. Thank you very much, Ajit and Ashok, for joining us this evening.
Streaming on News9 Plus. News is now content. Subscribe and get free vouchers.